All right, and we're live. What's up? Welcome to episode 13 of Press Pause with me, Jeff. I'll be going over the news from this last week with gaming that's kind of caught my eye. Let's go ahead and get a little tunage going in the background. So I kind of wanted to just jump right into it. A lot of kind of quick stories to cover. Kind of a top story that I wanted to touch on today that I found really interesting that I only just recently saw. I think it happened maybe Friday. But Yahoo Japan ran a story. It looks like the Japanese government is getting ready to introduce regulations on services operated by huge IT or giant IT, as they call it. And that is obviously translated. I don't speak Japanese, so Google Translate explained to me just how Japan was getting ready to regulate Google and Apple in regards to app stores. Now, you're probably wondering how the heck does that tie into gaming? But if you follow this channel or you've seen my content before, you know that I'm a big proponent of the future of screen agnostic gaming. And I think a major hurdle to that, maybe the biggest hurdle to that, is Apple and Google's very lockdown, walled garden approach to the app stores on phones. I think the best thing for gaming going forward in the future is going to be screen agnosticism, where you can play any platform on any device. I look at consoles, honestly, as cool as they are and as much nostalgia as I have for them in the past growing up. I do see consoles now, they're really like a necessary evil in the way that they offer a fairly low cost entry compared to like gaming PCs into gaming, but they do have a closed ecosystem. Phones are the same way, but phones are a lot more like a general use computer for most people. So I do think that for the marriage of mobile and regular gaming that I do think is coming, when you look at a future where there's going to be cloud gaming, there's going to be more intensive native gaming. So I think we're only probably a few years away from graphics cards finding their way into TVs, in which case you're going to start seeing people game straight off their television. I think we're headed for a future where Xbox and PlayStation and even Nintendo possibly are apps on your phone, on your TV, on your desktop. And I think that's going to be better for everybody. But part of getting there is kind of putting the kibosh on Apple and Google's walled gardens. They charge 30% cuts on everything you get from the App Store. They also encourage these games that are in-game purchases. They make a ton of money off it. I mean, mobile gaming as a whole brings in more revenue than PC console. So I think it's really good when you see governments starting to wake up to that and like, hey, it's kind of wild the amount of control and the prices that Apple and Google set for app developers. So yeah, kind of to dig into it just a little bit, it is coming to regulators for them to look at. So this was from the Digital Market Competition Headquarters, which is a division of their government, kind of like a committee. They're going to have their final report by the end of June, which is going to set out a new direction for regulators. They look at it basically like this, like they actually mentioned this. I think this is kind of what I find interesting is they mentioned, hang on, I lost it. I had a note here. Oh, here we go. So the new regulation will allow other companies to enter the App Store. The entry of giant IT companies such as Microsoft and major Japanese telecommunications companies is expected. The aim is to encourage competition and reduce the burden on consumers by lowering the fees paid by companies. Another problem is that Apple and Google are forcing app companies to use their own payment systems and restricting the use of other payment systems. Look, I think this is going to be very interesting, especially when you add on to that, the European Union has enacted the Digital Market Act, which imposes regulations on prohibiting these kind of companies from forcing people to use their own services, right? So forcing app developers to use Apple and Google's payment services, forcing them to use their kind of back-end stuff. Like even when you get another web browser on an Apple phone, it is Safari just with a fresh coat of makeup to make it look like Firefox or Edge or whatever, or Chrome. It's not even Chrome, Apple juice. All right, so wanted to touch on that. I think that's going to be a big deal. I'm very interested to see where that goes. Let's move on, though. We got a lot to cover, short amount of time. Another thing I wanted to touch on, I saw an article in Ars Technica and elsewhere. EA Sports and Nike think gaming NFTs can really work this time, is the headline from Ars Technica. And then they have this, hang on. Oh yeah, I was gonna pop over here. I was gonna show you guys the article. Yeah, so this is from Ars Technica. Look, after a lot of hype from game makers in 21, big publishers have been relatively quiet on the idea of integrating non-fungible tokens into their games. Yeah, because I thought there was a resounding go fuck yourself from around the world, from everyone involved in gaming, that we didn't want to see this kind of thing. But apparently, they're trying it again. There is a lot of money and push behind what this is. But in my opinion, look, NFTs, they don't have a place in gaming. I don't want to get into like what crypto is and maybe any value behind crypto, but I will say that NFTs are a ridiculous use of the blockchain. There's nothing NFTs do that other systems can already do. Like we already see custom, unique, paid-for skins integrated into CS:GO from Valve. That's not using NFTs, and those things go for ridiculous amounts of money. You know, I think I saw one went for millions this week or something, but I know like, you know, routinely you see CSGO pros rocking $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 unique weapon skins. So you don't need NFTs for that. You don't need to use this super unwieldy, environmentally unfriendly blockchain. It's horrible. And this article even goes on, and man, I don't know what is going on. Well, I do know what's going on. A lot of these articles are just fucking shill articles. Like they're written by people, and I don't know who the author of this is. I haven't looked into it, but I'm going to point out some of my issues with it in a second. But I've got another article coming down the line that does the same thing, where it doesn't seem to question the subject at all. It's not investigative. It's not challenging. It's not reporting. It's not kind of pushing. It's just like, almost like, hey, here, we reformatted this press release for you. Like, this is from Ars Technica. This is like a science and tech website. And you get into down here near the bottom, right? It says, as skeptical as we've been about previous efforts to integrate NFTs into games, the partnership could avoid some of the field's most common pitfalls. You mean like being bad for the environment and overall kind of stupid? Like the blockchain is kind of scammy? Like everyone involved in blockchain and crypto and the creation of this kind of stuff is essentially the same people that collapsed the housing market 15 years ago, and now this is like their new like gambling addiction? No, that's not what they mean. What they mean is this could actually be popular because it's got a recognizable brand. For one, Nike's already an established brand with legions of sneakerheads that follow its every move, and those fans have already shown at least some willingness to invest in digital swag bearing Nike's iconic swoosh. They had an initial virtual sneaker drop, a digital rendition of the Air Force One. It reached over $1 million in early sales to beta users. That's according to CoinDesk. I don't really want to get into what CoinDesk is and all of that, but I will just point out a lot of times with this stuff, people are purchasing this to keep the market up. If you have a lot of rich money behind NFTs and behind this stuff. So when like a new coin comes to market or when they beta test some of these things, yeah, people spend money on it because it is in their financial interest to make this look popular, make this seem poppin'. It's the same reason a lot of crypto comes out, launches, has a little bit of a week, they sell, and then all of a sudden it crashes and it disappears and you don't hear half of these coins again because it's people propping it up with artificial sales in the beginning. So who knows if this beta is genuine or not, right? But then they say those NFTs might become even more valuable to Nike fans if and when they can be used to unlock digital drip and EA Sports titles. Now, here's where we get to the crux of it. This is Nike and EA's big push. Digital drip, right? So cosmetics built into EA Sports titles. So things like the EA Football Club, right? Formerly the artist formerly known as FIFA. All the other sports titles they make. You could be seeing this in Madden, in the collegiate games they're bringing back. I don't know, man. This seems like just something they could give people. They could build this into the game and just charge you regular money and sell it to a ton of people instead of trying to make it unique. And if they're not going to make it unique, then it's not really an NFT. These kinds of real world clothing cosmetics, which is the dumbest way to put it. It's a shirt for your character. It's not real world clothing. And then here's what kills me though. This is what they say though. These real world clothing cosmetics also seem like items that could be relatively easy for other developers and publishers to integrate into their own games. No, No, they don't seem like it's relatively easy for that, for a couple of reasons. One, that's not how video games work. Video games are made across many different engines, and even when they're on the same engine, assets are different. Scale is not the same across all video games. So you can make a shirt in a game, like a digital asset that's a shirt that a character can wear. And if you try to import it into another game, even on the same engine, that shirt could suddenly be, gargantuan. All right. And then it gets even more complicated when you think about across engine games that have to go from one proprietary engine to another, like moving an asset built for Unreal into Unity. It's the amount of technical know-how and the issues. You'd have to have each developer for each game redesign that product to fit into their system. And why would they do that if they're also trying to sell you these bullshit NFTs? Oh yeah, come buy. Like, imagine Fortnite being like, hey, our whole business model is built on you buying cosmetics, but feel free to bring your own, right? Like, there's a reason restaurants don't let you bring in outside food. It makes it like it would destroy their business model. This makes no sense for game makers to want to do this. It's all. I was gonna touch on this quick, but I have such a rage and a hatred of NFTs in games. Stop it. All right, we saw Alexis Ohanian, however you say his name, tweeted earlier this week about how, in 5 years, most gamers aren't going to play games that don't properly value their time. They're going to want to be making money. They're going to be doing these play-to-earn NFT games. Or maybe gaming is fun. Just maybe it's a recreational activity. That's like saying in 5 years, people aren't going to crack open a beer at the beach or hug their children if their time isn't being properly valued. No, these are things people do not about making money, but because it's the point of life. And one of the points of life is having fun. People aren't going to listen to music if they can't earn money. That's not how that works. Gaming falls into that same category. It's an art form. It's a recreational art form, the same way listening to rock and roll or popping on Netflix is. You are happy to pay for it because the entertainment is the value, not the money you could earn. Don't try to turn gaming into a minimum wage gig, because that's what it is. It's actually below minimum wage. All these NFT games they're hyping up, they're not being played by gamers of means, the traditional PC or console gamer or someone who can do this. These are being paid. These games are being played by people who are getting paid less than minimum wage through these games. They've essentially created digital sweatshops, and they're trying to convince you it'd be a good idea if they brought it worldwide. I hate this so much. I hope this gets shot down the same way every other big game publisher tried to push NFTs got shot down. I'm hoping this gets just shit on as well, because this sucks. Okay, so before we kind of keep going with the rest of the news, I want to bring it down a bit, talking about what I've been playing. Street Fighter 6 launched. Been playing that, been getting bodied. I already showed you some footage from the demo. Didn't want to show it here quite yet, also because I've been getting bodied. So I'm showing you some more Warhammer 40k, which is the other title I've been focused on this week. Those kind of two have taken up my time. Diablo 4 also launched. It's clearly been a pretty big launch. So I've seen people saying it's maybe one of the best multiplayer launches ever as far as like server conditions and technical aspects. Obviously, Diablo 4 was always going to be big. The Diablo series is a big name brand that does big numbers, but this launch looks like it might be one of their biggest. So not really a game for me. Been happy to avoid Diablo thus far, not getting into it yet. Especially, maybe I think I might have been more intrigued, but I've been coming off Tears of the Kingdom still. Street Fighter launched that same weekend, so it was really easy for me to be like, no, I'm going to play Street Fighter. I'm going to get my ass kicked over here, rather than try to suck myself into a game like Diablo 4 where I'm going to play hundreds of hours. But what we got on the screen over here, ladies and gentlemen, I pointed the correct way the first time. I'm pretty stoked about it. But like I said, what we got over here, Warhammer 40k bolt gun. I talked about it briefly last week, but I wanna harp on it a bit, because I think I'm about 16 levels into this thing. I believe there's 24 total levels. So I'm about 2/3 of the way through. I'm loving it. I really, really am having a fantastic time with this gun game. I'm a huge fan of boomer shooters, as they call them. And yeah, this one really scratches the itch. I've been playing it on Xbox, picked it up there. Kind of wish I'd picked it up on PC, just because no FOV slider. Didn't really think about that at the time. I kind of just saw the sale and pulled the trigger. Went, oh, I'm gonna play this here. It'll be cool. Kind of wish I grabbed that on PC for the FOV slider and the chance to kind of mess around with keyboard and mouse. Even though primarily I'm controller gang till I die. Single player shooters, I do like to mess around with keyboard and mouse just because I'm trying to get used to that, as resistant as I've been over the years to keyboard and mouse. But overall, I'm loving this game. The soundtrack hits. It has that nice, simple feel of like older Doom stuff. Only about 8 weapons, I believe. I have 7 of the 8 right now, so I'm thinking the third act I'll get that 8th gun. Or no, wait, did I just get it? I don't think I got it yet. I think I still have just 7 of the 8. So not like a huge, crazy arsenal, but like a pretty reasonable arsenal. And I will say one thing though. One thing I kind of, it's not as modern as like, okay, so like the newer Doom games, like Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, they really work on like the idea of like picking the right weapon in the moment to deal with each enemy type. This game is like any gun will do. Just blast them. They're all kind of about similar strength. Your main gun, the bolt gun, is very powerful. Really feels nice. Really awesome that it's not just like a kind of a little plinky SMG feeling or like assault rifle feeling, but like it really feels like you're shooting rocket propelled bolts, which I guess is the lore, because I don't know. I don't know fucking shit about Warhammer, baby. But I'm liking what I'm learning. This is like a crazy cool game. One of the best parts of this game is the taunts. You press Y, or there's a dedicated talk shit button. There's literally a button you can press just to talk shit at people. And I've died because instead of pressing shoot gun, I've pressed talk shit. And I love it. I love it. Your character just points and talks and cracks their knuckles and rubs their hands and just tells the enemies they're gonna die, and it's hilarious. I want it in every game. The only thing I can think that kind of reminds me of is like in Red Dead 2, you could just push a button to like diffuse or antagonize. And so you just push the button and Arthur would start like antagonizing someone, like, you know, talking game at him, getting them riled up or whatever. This game has that. Obviously they don't respond. They're just these Warhammer monsters that come at you, but it's that sort of hilariousness. Really dig it. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been playing. Other than that, Street Fighter 6, I plan on talking about it more next week. I'm going to get deeper into it. I'm trying to get good. I've always been more of a couch co-op fighting game guy, or like go to the arcade and only dance with those that brung me. You know, just other like noobs who don't really know what they're doing. We kind of button mash. But I decided with Street Fighter 6, I'm really going to try to do more than just like the arcade mode of a fighter, you know, and get decent online. So working on that. Obviously, it takes a lot of time. The fighters are very technical. It's a skill issue, baby. I'm not there yet, but we're going to get there. Let's get back into the news, though, guys. Square Enix reportedly panicking over Final Fantasy 16 pre-orders. This comes via Game Rant. Basically, Gaming Insider, Tom Henderson's website, I guess, actually picked this up, and Game Rant's reporting on it. But apparently, word is that at Square Enix, the pre-order numbers for Final Fantasy 16 are lower than Final Fantasy 15. Now, I don't know if that's a big cause for concern. I mean, I think if you consider it, one, Final Fantasy 15 was multiple platforms. Final Fantasy 16 is only PS5, so it's not even PS4. And the PS5 install base is lower right now than the PlayStation's was. On top of that, there's no demo out for this game yet. It hasn't had the same length of marketing. I think a lot of people are waiting on reviews, and they're waiting on a demo, because I do think Final Fantasy 15 hit a lot of people as mid in many ways. But it's interesting. I think it is interesting to hear these reports. It seems like the more insular Square Enix is getting as they restrict more and more platforms. Like, we've seen Square Enix be like, okay, Octopath and Triangle are only on Nintendo. Final Fantasy is only on PlayStation. As they kind of do these restrictive things, they also complain about sales numbers, and it's like, man, maybe you shouldn't have restricted it on PC. I don't know. A little bit, it feels odd. It feels like these companies are like, we took money from Sony not to put this game on PC, and now we're not selling as many copies. I don't know, man. A lot of RPG enthusiasts have moved to PC. For a lot of people, Steam is the best way to get a complete JRPG library. I mean, you can look at like Capcom even, story Japanese studio makers of like Street Fighter, Resident Evil, all that. Capcom has talked about, 2 years ago now, that like PC was their was going to be their primary platform going forward. They were going to focus on PC as the primary, make sure that was always good, and then consoles, right? So I don't know. I find it interesting that they would complain about it, but I don't think it's you can't really know, right? Because pre-orders are just an estimation of what day one sales are going to be. They're not like a guarantee there. So something to consider, something to think on. I do want to jump onto this too. I saw several people talking about this, but MP First had an article. Let's jump over here real fast. I talked about this game at the last week on discussing the PlayStation Showcase, Phantom Blade Zero. In my opinion, this game continues to look like it's going to suck ass. Phantom Blade Zero won't have microtransactions, will feature Souls-like elements, but more approachable. If you remember from last week, we kind of took a look at the video from this in the showcase and kind of talked about how the animations in the combat made it look like, one, how's it going to be Soulsy when these animations are like 4 seconds long? Two, how's it going to play? Because some of it looked like maybe you push a button and something scripted happens. It looked very odd. So on top of that, on top of the fact that we're all learning a lot of crazy stuff about this game, like it's from a studio that normally makes mobile games. They only started making this game in 22. So the trailer was essentially a wild vertical slice that I really doubt is final gameplay. They put together a very cinematic trailer and tried to pass it off as gameplay. Looked kind of fishy to me. But let's kind of jump into this really fast. They did a Q&A on their Discord, and MP First breaks it down. Just get into the questions. Here's something they say here. What kind of weapons would you like to see in the game? Listen to this answer. What you saw in the trailer is only part of your arsenal in the final game. Each weapon affects gameplay with unique moves and combos. Since the game is still in the making, we're open to suggestions from the community. They showed this trailer like it was going to be this bomb-ass game. They're still taking suggestions on what weapons they could include. So they don't have this game balanced. They don't have this game ready. But they are passing it off like it's something ready to go and it's going to be a great game. I feel like that alone is like a huge red flag that you can't judge this game by the trailer they showed off when you look at something like that. They do say there will be no gacha elements. And then they sort of downplay the Souls-like elements that I think a lot of people thought was going to be there. They say there are Souls-like elements, but we're not going full throttle on difficulty and punishment. Approachable is the key here. So already, you know, like that's not going to be Souls-like. So I think that's something to watch out for. And then they say, yeah, we'll make the most out of the DualSense controller. We'll see if that's true. I think what this Q&A shows and what a lot of the stuff that's come out about it, though, is that we really have no idea if this game's going to deliver, what it's going to be, what it's going to look like. That trailer was maybe shown a little too early when you consider this game started development a year or less ago. So just kind of wanted to highlight that. Let's pop off from there, though. Witcher 3 has become the 9th best-selling game in history. I pulled up an article off Forbes just to talk about it. I saw a ton of people comment on this, and for some reason it says or third. I didn't read this article yet. I just needed a headline here for you. But a lot of people have reported on this. 50 million copies is the short, or the long and the short of it, right? So The Witcher 3 has done 50 million copies. It puts it at 9th on the top 10 list of games. I'm sure if we dig into this, we're going to find a reason he would say or third. Hang with me. We're not even to look for it. I'm not going to waste your time looking for it. Who cares? I did think this was interesting that it beat out the top Pokemon game. I mean, by about 3 million copies, which is pretty good. I don't know. The Witcher 3, I've tried many times to hop into this game and never really fully been able to go with it. I get a few hours in and I always fall off. I don't know. I just don't click with Geralt, really. That's just kind of the long and short of it. But congratulations to CD Projekt Red. Speaking of CD Projekt Red, some of their veteran developers have found a new studio, Blank. This would include some of the top level people, right? Some high levels that have jumped over there. And just, you know, they talk about, hey, you're losing when you make these big open world RPGs, you lose the chance to make truly filmic, top-notch quality games. That's what they say. Interesting. I do think that I don't know if CD Projekt Red is as known for like filmic, you know. So I guess, you know, that, and I get it. That's why they wanted to leave and they wanted to do something. They do say what they're working on now is a character-driven, story-focused game set in a post-apocalyptic world. So The Last of Us. I know I'm speaking just for me. But I'm so tired of video games set in the post-apocalyptic world. Like, just, are there no other avenues? I don't know, man. There's just got to be more interesting. Like, why are there so few games that are like alternative history or like near future that's not dystopian? Why are there no, like, there's so few games that are like utopian or alternate history or whatever. It's always far future sci-fi, fantasy, post-apocalypse. Just, I don't know. A little bit over it. All right, moving on from there. Meta debuts the Quest 3 headset for $499 because the thing that VR needs is it's the hardware. No, like they have no killer apps. VR games continue to be like, I don't really want to spend this much money for it. I don't see the drive for VR. The reason it stays niche is not because you just need to make the headset a little bit better. It's not. It is that you're not making the software super compelling, and I don't think VR lines up with what the mass market gamers are looking for. I think is the reason it continues to struggle. I think it's interesting that most of the like R&D and the sort of like the push for innovation seems to be on the hardware side, and not as much on like software. Really, like, let's see some big triple, like, let's see some loss leaders in the software side of VR, like mega loss leaders where you're like, whoa, that is an experience I cannot get on a flat screen. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think 500 is a tall order for this thing. I guess it's coming in cheaper than PlayStation's. But they've redesigned the controllers. It's going to be 40% thinner, and it's going to have 2 times the graphics performance of the Quest 2. They're also dropping the price of the 128 gigabyte Quest 2 to like $299. So if you are looking to pick one up, you want something on the cheap, that might be another way to go. All right. Now let's get into some stuff about cloud. Cloud gaming has been coming up a lot on this show for a number of reasons. One, I think it's going to play a larger and larger role in gaming as the future goes on. Two, it was a major part of why the UK blocked the Microsoft Activision deal. And now we've got Sony CEO warns technical issues still remain for cloud gaming. Now, I pulled up this VGC article on this. I did read the initial Financial Times report on this, but I guess I read it through Twitter and I was able to just read it. When I tried to pull it up again, it was paywalled. So just to kind of have something to click onto here, just talking about cloud, we've got this nice picture of the Logitech G Cloud, one of those cloud-only devices. But basically, in this interview, Sony's CEO, Kenichiro Yoshida, had talked about how he thinks there's some remaining issues around cloud. Now, this comes right after, a week ago, Jim Ryan had made some comments about how Sony plans to be very aggressive in cloud, and they see that's a part of the future that's coming, and they want to be a leader in it, and they have some very innovative things they want to try. But now we get this. Yoshida says when it comes to games, the technical difficulties are high. He mentioned latency. He talked about wanting to take them on, but it almost seems like they're kind of downplaying what they think cloud will be. I mean, we can see that Sony's Project Q, the Q Lite or whatever that they announced, that's not going to be a cloud project. It is going to be QU, like a Wii U, like tethered to your PS5. So look, that's kind of the thing about this stuff, right? When you take a cloud gaming or you take cloud gaming out of it and you have this handheld that's just tethered to it, it's like it's very much a on the couch around the house when you can't be on the TV sort of a system. So you can see that Sony is not 100% on cloud, right? They're not making this big push that some of the others are. I just thought he said some interesting things, right? Now, the actual Financial Times article, I wish I could have pulled it up because there was another article I thought was kind of felt like a puff piece a little bit. Like it wasn't so much I don't know. I have an idea with journalists that an interview should almost be a little bit of a friendly interrogation. Like there should be some questioning, there should be some pushback, there should be context given to the reader. A lot of these articles, when they get to interview these people, and I get it, they want access. So it ends up being like a very not questioning what they say, not giving just kind of being like, this is what they said, this is what they think, to the point where like the article even said, Microsoft has said they have 20 million cloud users in xCloud. And it's like, no, Microsoft didn't say that. the UK CMA stated that as they blocked Microsoft. Microsoft would not characterize it as 20 million over 20 million cloud users. They would say they have over 20 million Game Pass users, and cloud is a feature, an additive feature to that subscription. So things like that kind of bother me about this piece. The idea they didn't push back on Yoshida at all as far as like, hey, which, you know, VGC to their credit does bring up the fact that Jim Ryan had been pretty bullish on cloud just a week ago. And then Yoshida's out here saying this. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of that, but it makes you wonder if there is some internal hesitancy at PlayStation to really dive into cloud. And look, cloud is years away from being truly mainstream, I think, but I do think it's coming. And it's going to have more mass appeal than something like VR over time. We're going to see that. All right, so let's kind of get into like the final thing I wanted to touch on, which is the Microsoft Activision deal. We kind of close out every week, I feel like, talking about it, just because there's always usually something kind of new that comes up that's interesting. The big story this week, I feel like, has been, there have been some reports that, and this originally came from Imlex, but was later confirmed by Bloomberg, that Microsoft is exploring potentially pulling Activision from the UK market. It seems like Microsoft is all in on this deal, and they want to own Activision Blizzard King to the point where they might pull out from having Activision products available in the UK direct. They wouldn't fully pull it out. They would have a third-party distributor or set up some sort of distribution channel to provide Activision games there, but likely that would mean potentially higher prices. It would also mean like no Activision maybe on Game Pass or maybe on the cloud for UK customers. The rest of the world would get it. But I think as you look at how many countries are approving the deal, in the case of Europe, they did want concessions, but a lot of countries are approving it no concessions. So you look at things like the EU approving the deal, China approving the deal, South Korea approving the deal, Japan approving the deal. These are all top 10 world economies. And so we're at 40 countries, I believe now. We're waiting on South Africa's decision, New Zealand's decision, Australia, provided they don't delay again. Canada has one coming down the pipes, but there is a loophole with Canadian law where they can close over it already because time has passed. It is being blocked, or not blocked, but it is being challenged by the US FTC. They will be suing, but Microsoft has already said they'll close over that. So chances are we're going to see big steps near the end of this month. The 18th is the cutoff for the agreement with Activision, where they would either need to renegotiate and extend that time period, or they would just need to close over the objections of the CMA in the US. They've already said they'll close over the US. They may close over the CMA and look to like split the business and maybe either eat the fine or carve out the Activision business in the UK. Very interesting stuff, but I think what it shows is like Microsoft is extremely committed to this deal. I said before when the deal was first announced, it's like the first video I ever put on YouTube, that if Microsoft's reason for buying this is because they do see gaming as their consumer-focused social piece. Satya Nadella literally said the way Amazon has shopping or Facebook has social media, we want to have gaming. So I think when you look at that, like this is a huge push for that. This is a major part of it. I don't think they're going to let one country disrupt that. So I think there's a good chance we see some pretty odd corporate restructuring over there in regards to Activision, or an agreement is made between the CMA and Microsoft. Maybe there's new concessions. Maybe there's some sort of deal. Microsoft's president Brad Smith is meeting with the UK Chancellor Jeremy Hunt to discuss things. But yeah, I think this deal is far from dead. I do think there's a pretty good chance this gets pushed through, or Microsoft pulls Activision from the UK over time and maybe he just eats the fines. But yeah, that's kind of all the major things I wanted to touch on. As always, like if you made it this far, I'll just say, please like the video, consider subscribing. And if you had any questions, throw them in the comments. I'd love to answer them next week. But yeah, that's basically it for it this week. Some interesting stories, nothing too major. Like I said, I think at the end of this month, we're going to see some big shakeups from the Microsoft Activision deal, as well as Final Fantasy 16 on the horizon. But I'm going to try to get really good at Street Fighter by that point so that I can jump over to Final Fantasy. We'll see what happens though. But yeah, thanks for watching. That's all we got. I will see you next week.